Morning. I think we're ready to get started. So we're here today to talk about, hi Supervisor, a very exciting development in our longstanding plans to revitalize Hunters Point Shipyard and Candlestick Point. I think most of you know this is a big project. It's a complicated project. It's an extraordinarily important project. It has a number of elements to it. Thousands of units of new affordable housing, rebuilding the Alice Griffith public housing, building hundreds of acres of waterfront parks. But one of the key tenets of our community-based planning effort has always been the imperative that we reestablish Hunters Point Shipyard as an economic engine, job-generating economic engine for the Bayview Hunters Point community and for San Francisco as a whole. Early on in the planning process, we identified parcel C, which, if I can just put you guys aside a little bit, which is right here, as sort of the ideal site for commercial, office, light industrial, R&D. It's a large site, 78 acres, and as a result, it's one of the few places in San Francisco where you can have a campus-like setting with a San Francisco address. It's almost equidistant from downtown and SFO, and obviously has an incredible waterfront location. As we've moved forward in the planning process, and we are now achingly close to the finish line on this project, we've been really sharpening our pencils to think about what are the types of industries that can really thrive in San Francisco. And I think it was an obvious conclusion that green technology is that industry. And the mayor will talk more about why that is the case. Ultimately, our objective here is for Hunters Point Shipyard to be to green tech what Mission Bay is to biotech. And we think we have all of the elements to make that true. The one thing that we were lacking, however, was an anchor, sort of an organizing principle. At Mission Bay, it's really been critical to our success there to have UCSF and their world-renowned life science programs to attract biotech and life science companies. And we have been thinking about what would be the right anchor that we could begin to organize the idea of Hunters Point Shipyard as one of the nation's and one of the world's great green tech centers. And thanks to Jared Blumenfeld, by the way, who's not here, Peter Albert, David Pascal, and others who've had work with Gavin Power and understood the UN Global Compact, we hit on what we think is the perfect match. And that's a partnership with the UN Global Compact to create a center on Hunters Point Shipyard, which will have obviously a physical presence for the UN Global Compact in San Francisco. It will have a conference center. People from around the world can come to San Francisco and talk about global warming, to talk about environmental justice issues, to talk about the latest and greatest technology in the field of green technology. It is really a very, very exciting opportunity. We're also including, as part of this project, a green tech incubator. And it's very important. It's similar to what we have at Mission Bay with QB3's biotech incubator. And the idea here is for this to translate not just into good ideas, but into jobs. And this entire center, 2.5 million square feet, we hope will be a major source of employment, as I mentioned, for the Bayview, for all of San Francisco, and in these difficult economic times, that is more important than ever. Before I turn it over to the mayor, I do want to make one clarification, because I think there's been some confusion about this. This is not an either-or equation about our stadium site for the San Francisco 49ers. Our plans all along have had 2 million square feet for green tech, and next to it, and you can actually see part of it on this rendering, thank you very much, a site for the San Francisco 49ers. The important thing for us is, with or without the 49ers, with the opportunity to partner with the UN Global Compact, we think this is going to be extraordinarily successful. But I want to be crystal clear that the UN coming in and us developing the center in no way undercuts the quality of the opportunity site that we've made available to the San Francisco 49ers. So with that, let me turn it over to Mayor Newsom.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you for all your leadership and stewardship of this process. And as you know, this really goes back to 1974 when this shipyard was laid fallow, toxic site. The Navy took off and promises were made to clean up the site. A lot of environmental justice issues have persisted over the course of many, many decades. In the last 15 or so years, the city's really stepped up its federal efforts to get this shipyard cleaned up, to get the toxics removed. In the last 6 years in particular, and I couldn't be more proud of this, we've generated over $500 million, almost $500 million of federal dollars to clean up the shipyard site. In fact, just in the last year or so, we generated over $80 million, more than all the other shipyards in America combined, through our efforts in federal advocacy, through the leadership of Speaker Pelosi, former Mayor Dianne Feinstein, and others. We've been able to pool those dollars and resources down into the community, create real jobs, and these are indeed green-collar jobs, and we have cleaned up the shipyard and at least got it to a point where we can lay claim that we're ready to finish the job of the cleanup and begin the process of renewal and rebirth and revitalization. We codified that through an effort, an initiative last year, Proposition G, where we rezoned the entire area. Michael referenced the fact that there's a component, that's the component we want to highlight today as it relates to the 2+ million square feet of R&D space or space that would be set aside for green tech. But this also includes a Crissy Field of the southeast sector, a more open space and more park space than ever has been developed in San Francisco since Golden Gate Park. We have the opportunity to build over 3,200 units of affordable housing, 10,500 units of housing overall. No ability, as Michael said, to rebuild one of our most aged housing projects, the Alice Griffith site. We have the opportunity to create retail space and office space, in addition to creating the opportunity for the 49ers to make a better decision, and that is not to abandon their city and abandon their promises, but to stay in San Francisco and commit to fulfill their promises they've made to taxpayers and remain with a 69,000-seat stadium that has been zoned. We already went to the voters. The voters approved the zoning of a new football stadium site, and that is also afforded. In addition, there is a 10,000-seat venue that doesn't seem to get any attention that is also zoned here. That would also be an amphitheater-type venue that would also provide an anchor opportunity for people to host events and concerts and the like, and I think it's also a potential major attraction. But what we've been missing is what Michael suggested we've been missing, and that's the real anchor that represents the values of this project and the values of our city. I think he said it best. We want to make the southeast sector and the shipyard to green tech what Mission Bay has been made to life science and biotech. UCSF has been that anchor. We went from one biotech company 5 years ago to just last week announcing the 51st biotech company and life science company now in Mission Bay. That is very significant. This is the type of momentum and this is the type of anchor we're hoping to proceed with in the shipyard with a green tech focus. This is not rhetoric, this is real. We've already recruited 197 green tech companies in San Francisco in the last few years. We have tax incentives that inspire the recruitment of those companies. We have put together with the former head of the EPA a Green Tech Advisory Committee that has been very aggressive in seeking out companies to recruit into San Francisco. We have put together the most aggressive urban environmental agenda of any city in the United States of America, and that's not just with our solar incentives. Now we're leading the state of California per capita solar generation, but it's been our efforts on recycling and composting, our efforts on green buildings, which have set the bar higher than any other city in America, our work that we have done on energy efficiency, which will put up against any other city, and our efforts to create a ubiquitous infrastructure for the electrification of our vehicle fleet and our biodiesel efforts, including the development of a biodiesel plant within the city and county boundaries, going through environmental approvals as we speak. Darling International, our contractor, so that we start doing biomass and biodiesel, again, within the city proper. Green tech, green jobs, reconciling the issue of environmental justice, taking an old site that was marked as an environmental disaster zone and converting it into a mecca for green tech and a mecca for renewal, I think is what it's all about. Here it is, the birthplace of the United Nations. It started here in San Francisco. Never forget that we have the opportunity to bring the UN back in, I think, a very meaningful way. The United Nations, their Secretary General, has committed himself and themselves to the cause of environmental stewardship and global stewardship as it relates to the same. The opportunity to anchor that in a gateway city to Asia and Pacific, to anchor that in a location, again, where environmental justice is the critical issue, and to do it in a way that we can support the development and the incubation of literally thousands of similar type of small companies is what, to me, it's all about. This was the promise of Prop G. This was the promise of the efforts that we have been making, the culmination thereof over the last few decades. And so I think this is a very exciting opportunity. In just closing, we had the opportunity to meet Gavin Power a number of years ago. You recall in 2005. This really began, technically, it began 3 years ago, but I would argue that this really began in 2005 when the UN held its World Environment Day here in San Francisco. And we got to know Gavin, and we got to know a lot of folks with the United Nations, and we created this new compact and these partnerships with businesses with the support of the United Nations, with their leadership, candidly, and we tried to lend our support. And these discussions have been really taking shape over the last 36 or so months, and we just think this is an ideal opportunity for this site, and we think that this will be embraced overwhelmingly on the West Coast. The UN on the East Coast, representing our proud past. Michael Bloomberg wouldn't be so proud that I said that. And then here on the West Coast, the state of dreamers and doers, always looking to tomorrow and anchoring its fate and future in relationship to China and Asia and elsewhere. I think this is perfect for the United Nations, perfect for our city. So, again, I want to thank everybody's leadership. I want to thank Supervisor Maxwell for all her support and counsel and advice on this, and to everyone behind me, and, of course, to Gavin Power, who really made this possible and will make it real if indeed we can raise the money, which I'm sure will be top of mind in the question session here, and we're going to be eager to get that started immediately. So thank you. Again, perfect. Gavin.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very exciting day, obviously, for the United Nations as we join Mayor Newsom and the City of San Francisco in announcing plans for a UN Global Compact Sustainability Center. Once again, I wish to recognize Mayor Newsom's leadership on perhaps our greatest global challenge, that is climate change. Just 5 months from now, governments from around the world will meet in Copenhagen at the UN Climate Summit to try and seal the deal on a new global climate framework. And the stakes could not be higher. Climate change threatens to disrupt and destroy societies, economies, and ecosystems around the planet. And this is why investments in mitigation and adaptation are so urgent and so critical. And San Francisco is again showing the way. 5 years ago, as Mayor Newsom said, the city became the first U.S. city to formally endorse the UN Global Compact, the world's largest sustainability initiative uniting companies, governments, and civil society. And just 2 years ago, the city launched the Business Council on Climate Change, or BC3, in partnership with the Global Compact. This new center further advances the city's leadership and will serve as an incubator and laboratory for new technologies, new innovations, new solutions. We hope it will also serve as a model for other cities around the world. Lastly, for the United Nations in San Francisco, this has poignant significance as well, obviously. San Francisco, as the mayor said, is the birthplace of the United Nations. has been a steadfast supporter of the UN since the Charter was signed in 1945, just blocks away from where we meet this morning. Mayor Newsom, Supervisor, colleagues, the UN has found its way back home as a result of your vision and support, and we thank you and look forward to an even stronger partnership. Thank you. Gavin Power, Deputy Director, United Nations Global Compact, GAVIN, obviously, POWER.
Next, I'd like to have Supervisor Maxwell come up and say a few words. She has been one of the really great champions of this project. We've been working on it for a long time, and one of the really great champions of environmental justice issues for the Bayview community. So, Supervisor.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank the UN for recognizing that San Francisco is the place for this center and that Bayview Hunters Point is the place for this center. This neighborhood and this community has been plagued with injustice for decades, and now sweet justice has arrived. Many people in this community have felt that this would be a great place for green tech, the only place for a green tech. And obviously, that vision has been impregnated to many others. So we are grateful, and we know this is the right place, and I think you will find a good, willing community with plenty of people to work and plenty of people to spread the good word of green technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Next, I'd like to invite up Phaedra Ellis-Lampkins, who is the Executive Director of Green for All.
I just want to tell you how truly pleased I am to be here. We've been going across the country really trying to encourage people to create green-collar jobs, a job that provides family-supporting wages, but also recognizes that there's a need to be able to solve this global crisis. What's important about today, through the leadership of the UN, Mayor Newsom, and Supervisor Maxwell, is this is really about what we want to be, the place where the economy and the environment intersect. We can't afford to build a clean energy economy that only works for a select few. Our communities in Hunters Point have far too long suffered in this pollution-based economy. We know that African Americans are 79% more likely than whites to live in neighborhoods with the highest levels of industrial pollution, 5 times more likely to live near a power plant, 3 times more likely as children to have asthma. We know that unemployment is 5 times more high for the African American population right now and continues to grow at a rapid pace. So it's clear that pollution and poverty hurt everybody. But that's what's beautiful about the promise of the United Nations Compact here in San Francisco. This is the promise of jobs in a community that needs them, whether in construction or operation. It's the promise of a project of opportunity of good business. San Francisco is leading the way. And while I am excited it's leading the way in environmental stewardship, it's leading the way in creating a model across the country and how communities get to prosper. In a moment of recession where we say that the people that need resources and innovation the most are the communities that have suffered the most. And what this project does is it allows us to lift up not just the principles of the United Nations, but the principles that we would want as citizens of San Francisco. And I have to tell you that I'm supposed to be in Chicago with Mayor Nichols making an announcement and speaking at the Urban League. But as a California resident and as someone who got to be here, there was no clear choice for me than to get to be here and say, investment in Hunters Point, investment in communities, the creation of a new economy, the opportunity to solve a recession, that's where I want to be. That's where Green for All will want to be. And what this does is it signals that public-private partnerships focused on improving the environment and quality of life are not just possible, but they're probable and sustainable. And I want to tell you, thank you on behalf of Detroit. Thank you on behalf of citizens in South Carolina. Thank you on behalf of Florida, because what this allows us to do is talk about a model, to talk about recovery, to talk about sustainability, and really to be clear that there is promise, there is opportunity, and that unlike the last industrial economy and the information economy, which provided great opportunity but left a lot of people behind, San Francisco, through Mayor Newsom and the UN and Supervisor Maxwell's leadership, will be at the forefront of providing opportunity in a new economy. Thank you. Yes, Phaedra Ellis-Lampkins, and it is not as easy to spell as Gavin. Phaedra. My last name is hyphenated, ELLIS-LAMKINS, and I'm the CEO of Green for All.
Thank you, Phaedra. You've heard over and over again as we've talked about this that this is really about jobs. It's about economic recovery. It's about new economies that work. So we've asked a few leaders in this area from the business community to talk about the importance of a center like this, how it works, and the importance of having an anchor. First up, I'd like to have Jim Robbins, who's a green tech incubator consultant who we've been working with already for some of our plans around Hunters Point Shipyard, and Dan Adler, who is the president of the Clean Energy Fund, to come up and say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Mayor. My name is Jim Robbins. I'm a partner in business cluster development, and I also happen to have run a clean technology incubator for the last 15 years until January, and now I'm helping the city try and set up their incubator separate from the UN building, a separate incubator for businesses in San Francisco. We've talked to a number of the 200 companies that the mayor mentioned to see about their interest in a place to start up at Hunters Point, and almost without reservation, they're very excited about the idea. One of the early buildings is being considered in the development of Hunters Point for this incubator. It would also be a place where clean technology demonstrations and testing and green workforce training would go on. So in developing that, and in my work, I've helped start up about 50 technology clusters around the U.S. You need several things. You need enlightened government policy, which we have here in San Francisco. You need a place for those companies to grow when they come in and get started up. You need an incubator to help them start up. Incubators just about triple the success rate of companies that start in them versus ones that start outside of the incubator. But we also had said to the city that one of the most important things when you're trying to set up a cluster like this is early on to have an anchor tenant that adds credibility and brings experience and knowledge and will help attract young businesses to the area because they see the endeavor is serious and that there are experienced larger organizations that are moving in. So I think this is a perfect combination, and I'm really excited to be able to work with the city to help set up a center for technology development at Hunters Point.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the chance to be with you today and to your whole team. I'm Dan Adler. I'm president of the California Clean Energy Fund. We're a nonprofit venture capital organization that is working to create connective tissue between the financial, policy, technology, and labor communities to really accelerate the growth of the clean tech business. We have a portfolio of about 40 clean tech startups that we've invested in with a number of partners, all of which are looking for opportunities to partner because, frankly, that's where the smart money and the smart investments are going in the clean tech business. You know that there's been a surge in clean tech interest over the last several years. That interest has not necessarily understood or been amenable to partnerships with what public policy is doing. This business, unlike any others, and by that I mean clean tech, sustainability, and energy broadly, is dependent on partnerships with the public sector. What got me so excited about this announcement, and now seeing the photos even more so, is that it's both scaled to the size of the challenge that we face, and it builds so much from our strengths. The need to really transform the energy system in the world has not fully been grasped by most people who are active in the business. We're talking about a fundamental transformation of every aspect of our industrial society. We need partners like the United Nations. We need enlightened leadership at every level, particularly at the community level, because that's where energy is consumed, that's where environmental problems are faced, and that's where jobs are created. I would point out that we're talking about this as the next phase of the Mission Bay biotech cluster. There's a lot of crossovers and linkages there. We actually have a company that is housed at Mission Bay right now working on biotechnology applications for sustainable biofuels. Biofuels are a very troubling industry. We have to be careful in how we proceed. But if it is going to succeed, it's going to be taking the best science and innovation from other sectors, and San Francisco has natural advantages there, in addition to its information technology strengths, investment strengths, and all the service economy. I want to add something to what Phaedra mentioned. There's a recent report from the Pew Charitable Trusts looking at the nature of the clean energy and sustainability economy. And it points out that over the last 10 years, that subsector in the economy has created 2.5 times the jobs of the rest of the economy broadly. Now, it starts small, clearly. We know this is not going to lead us out of the recession tomorrow. But I remember my math well enough to know that if something is growing 2.5 times faster than anything else, it's going to get big. And it's going to get big and benefit the people that take leadership and aggressive action at this point. It's a beautiful place. I can see it coming. Sign me up. It's much nicer than my office, so I hope I can get a lease.
Thank you, Dan. So, final speaker, I'd like to have one of our local success stories in the green technology world come up. Peter Flashman, who's the CEO of Keiko New Energy. Peter.
Thank you. My name is Peter Flaxman. I'm CEO of Keiko New Energy here in San Francisco. We are the U.S. subsidiary of one of the world's largest photovoltaic inverter manufacturers. We're based out of Germany. We've talked here today about some of the prospects, about the future of green tech. I think our company in the last 10 years has experienced that firsthand. We started off in 1999 with 5 people. Today we do nearly $400 million US in sales, have offices all across the world, including the office here. In 2004, we decided to come to the United States. We chose San Francisco for various reasons, some of them being the consumer in Northern California at that point had already gotten it. I think ideas like energy conservation, renewable energy were definitely easier to sell here in Northern California. But the other reason we came to San Francisco was the city and some of the vision that the city already back then had about clean tech. The photovoltaic program that Mayor Newsom has initiated here in the city is a great example. And this project here now is another wonderful example. And we're happy that we're here. And today's press release and our news event kind of validates that we're in the right city, and it's a city that takes our business seriously, and we hope that we can experience the same kind of growth here that we've experienced in other nations around the world. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Peter. So I think before we wrap, we're ready to take some questions, and you probably want to hear from the mayor more than me, but we'll do our best.
Could you explain about the 49ers party? I'm sorry.
The one thing I just wanted to make clear, right? I think there was some perhaps misunderstanding that this Clean Tech Center was an alternative to our plans to have a stadium site for the 49ers. Nothing could be further from the truth. Anyone who's been following this project for the last couple of years knows what our land use map looks like. And our land use map for the last couple of years has had 2.5 million square feet for a green tech campus on what is called Parcel C, and a 25-acre stadium site on Parcel G. Both of those are moving forward. Both of them are going to offer terrific opportunities. If the Niners elect not to come, we will look at alternative uses for that 25 acres. But what we have here is going ahead, full steam ahead, in any case.
It's another reason why, for the life of me, I can't understand why they want to move out of San Francisco. I mean, with all due respect to the freeway, I'm not necessarily sure I want to be next to a freeway if I want to create a world-class site. Here you have the opportunity, the stadium right there, where you have ferry service coming right up along the lines of AT&T Park. You're going to have a Crissy Field type ring that connects the state park system in a bay trail that is world-class. You're going to have views that are so magnificent. What a marketing and branding opportunity. You already have the place zoned. You already have the city council / board of supervisors approving it. You already have the voters that you've already gone in front of. I mean, we got a partner. We put up money, but they want to move. So this just underscores some of our bewilderment in terms of that desire. I'm trying. They prep me every day to be good about this topic publicly, as to not create more ill will. I'm just trying my best. So please bear with me. I'm not going to let it go.
Any other questions?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Does this correspond with San Francisco's opportunity to host the U.S.-China Clean Energy Center?
Yeah, in fact, Michael will talk more about it.
Well, it does. I mean, it's something we're keenly focused on. We think it would be a wonderful opportunity. The mayor alluded to it a little bit, but one of the real selling points when we started talking to Gavin Power in the United Nations about this center is San Francisco's status as a gateway city to the Pacific and particularly to China. We have an initiative that some of you may be familiar with, which is called China SF, which has been spectacularly successful, up and running for less than a year, and one of the, actually by far, the most interest and job development that we've had from Chinese companies that we're trying to attract to San Francisco has been in clean energy. I think I saw Ginny Fang here, who's a director of the San Francisco China SF office, that we now have 5 Chinese solar companies who have come to San Francisco, and we think there will be more to come across all sectors. So we very much have that on our radar screen. It would be a perfect partner. One of the things Supervisor Maxwell and I were talking about yesterday is the UN Global Compact is the flag that we're putting in the ground here. But over time, this is a very big site. We're hoping that this is going to evolve. We're going to bring additional partners on board, and obviously a center focused on clean tech research between China and the United States would play right into our strengths.
How much is the standing cost? Where's the money coming from, and how much is the city putting in?
So the good news is the city isn't putting in anything. Thanks to Speaker Pelosi, not only do we have we gotten quite a bit of federal funding for cleanup of the shipyard. The Navy is legally obligated to turn it over to us after the cleanup is done for $1. So I guess we do have to pay the $1. I think the mayor already prepaid the $1. We have a development partner who we've been working with on these plans. Again, some of you may know the first phase of this project is already under construction. Well on its way under construction. We'll have vertical development and homes going up shortly. We've been working through the approval and entitlement process on the second phase. So our development partners will do all the infrastructure work, provide the land, basically a buildable pad. The vertical construction of the center is going to vary, frankly, depending on the size. We think it's $20 to $30 million for the first phase building here. And there are a number of sources that we'll get that from. There are federal and state grant programs. There are foundations. I can tell you in the last 48 hours, 3 or 4 major corporations that are located in the San Francisco Bay Area that are keenly focused on being identified as clean and green companies have expressed interest to us on partnering with this. I think being able to include the United Nations brand and what it means across the world, I don't want to say fundraising is going to be a breeze. It never is. But this is one that we're going to have a lot of help with.
I just had a question, and maybe it's Gavin number 2 that I need to ask this to. The United Nations Global Compact Center, is that part of the United Nations? Is it an affiliation? And if it's actually part of the United Nations, why isn't it paying for whatever costs are associated with building?
The UN Global Compact has been endorsed by the UN General Assembly, and we report to the Secretary General directly. So we are a UN entity, a public-private initiative of some 6,000 companies in 130 countries, in addition to governments, civil society, and labor groups. So we're a multi-stakeholder program within the UN.
So you're not actually a part of the UN in the sense that they would pay to build this?
Not directly, but we hope to facilitate contributions through our network, so we can tap into our companies, our foundations, other nonprofits potentially, in terms of helping to.
The things that would actually be in the center, are they some of the businesses that you refer to, or would they be in other buildings out? How would that work?
Right, or some of the initiatives that we have. We have 2 global initiatives, one called Caring for Climate, which includes roughly 400 companies working on climate mitigation and adaptation, and as well the CEO Water Mandate, looking at water sustainability, which is also a critical issue related to climate change. So we hope to bring those initiatives to this lab in terms of working groups and research and so forth. So I think this would be a fantastic platform to further develop those global initiatives, which were launched about 2 or 3 years ago by the Secretary General.
So just a clarification, are you trying to attract green businesses to this area or specifically to this center, or both?
It's both.
Both.
It's both. I mean, this is a piece, we hope an important piece, of a much bigger whole. And again, I keep coming back to the analogy of UCSF at Mission Bay. So this center can be the anchor. It's, you know, we talk about it a lot, but you often have to organize around a principle. And this center and our partnership with the UN is the organizing principle. It will include a business incubator. It will include many of the companies that are partnered with the UN Global Compact. And then what we hope that will spur is interest for many of the other types of companies that we've talked to today who are going to say, you know what, the city is serious. This is a place where the best and the brightest are talking about these issues. We want to be here too. So it's both.
Human capital, bringing the best and the brightest from around the world, anchoring this city's fate and future in relation to that. That's what the California Stem Cell Institute did for us. That's what UCSF does for us. That's what this global center would do for us. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, the Stem Cell Institute's another really good sort of analogy of what we're trying to accomplish here. Any other questions?
What exactly is an incubator? Is it like a nonprofit lab, or is it run by a corporation? Is it like office space?
I can give you the answer, but we got a pro here. I'll tell you the definition of an incubator.
So an incubator is first of all, it's a place with a staff that helps people start businesses. So they come in either from inside San Francisco or often from outside the city, and they start their company. So at Hunters Point, in a facility with staff, and they might come in with 3 or 4 or 5 people, and they get help raising money, doing their business plans, identifying customers, and then they grow often to say maybe 20 people, and then they move out into another building in Hunters Point and start to grow. And so they can, some of them will be small successful companies, and some of them will grow to 300 or 400 people. So the incubator attracts every year, year after year, 20 companies at a time, and it kind of pushes them out into this development year after year as they get a little bigger. And as I said, the success rate is dramatically higher than for companies that start without this kind of help. And people like Dan Adler and his group, they have seed funds and financing. You've got a great set of financial institutions in San Francisco. I can't imagine a better place to attract these companies. But it is a place. Now, who runs it is a decision to be made. Sometimes it's a nonprofit, and sometimes it's a for-profit organization. We'll figure that out soon.
I actually just had one other quick. What's the timetable for this?
Yeah. So, and actually, Jim alluded to part of it. So, I'll work backwards. We'd like to have the permanent facility open 2012, 2.5, 3 years from now. What we're going to be focusing on probably for the next 9 months is a rather intensive process of scoping exactly what the right mix is, what are the characteristics for the building that we're looking for. And on a parallel track, because they'll be driven together, we'll go on the fundraising trail, and some of the partners that we bring along with that will actually help define the particular parameters of the building. At that point, once we know we got enough money, we know what the building looks like, we go into construction documents, and then we would like to be open, like I said, in around 2012. Jim alluded to it. There's an interesting opportunity if we are successful earlier than that. We are already working. There's a building on the shipyard. It's one of the few buildings that's actually staying. It's called Building 813. It's a fascinating old Navy building, super solid, that has giant 80,000 square foot floor plates. It is actually almost the perfect type of building for incubator space. And we secured over the last couple of years some federal economic development grants, and so we are actively working on starting our incubator process at Hunters Point Shipyard in Building 813. And depending on the timing, if we're successful, we can do an early launch with the UN Global Compact there as the permanent facility is being built. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you all.